good afternoon, and welcome. I am feeling so good today. I got some great guests, but I just want to thank this brother Norm right now for allowing me the space to come here and chat with you all. And of course, I want to thank my crew, my producers, Lula and Sheila, and my advisor, Juanita. And of course, I want to thank my little promotional crew, Elijah and uh, Harleen, for doing the promotion for me. Uh, but I tell you, again, I can't thank God enough for giving me the extraordinary task to disseminate information to you. You know, it's non-debatable information. This show is just not to debate. It's to share information with you. Number one, let's say what we're here for. We are the original people, as far as history can tell. Number two, we are descendants of Jesus Christ. That's what our history tells us. Number three, we were builders of the pyramids. That's what our history tells us. Number four, we were inhabitants of great societies and civilization. That's what our history tells us. We were kidnapped from our homeland. That's what our history tells us. Number six, we were abused, dehumanized, and enslaved for 200 plus years. That's what our history tells us. You know, so we were still under the gun for another 200 years. That's what our history tells us. We have never been studied, tended to, or compensated for the misery caused us, or gotten any compensation for free labor that were forced upon us. Now, those are facts, non-debatable. So when I declare that I'm an amateur looking for experts, I mean experts who can handle all those facts I enumerated and come up with a solution to heal, to develop what you may call a vaccine, if you will, for what ails us. You have to believe that going through and coming out of all that, there just had to be certain things that happened to us. You know, syndromes, the Willie Lynch syndrome, the Stockholm syndrome, the hate thyself syndrome, the weathering, and on and on and on. And there were many syndromes and ailments. Read Dr. Joy DeGrau's book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Read the late Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, the ISIS papers. Experts who know what 400 plus years of genocide, discrimination, and racism have done to us. And why? Trying to explain this concept each time is daunting, but necessary. However, the blessing is God provides me examples by which to demonstrate my theory. To better clarify what I mean by amateur versus experts, because many people still not understanding it. One such example. Now, we all know or have heard about the tragedy in the Middle East. Both Palestinians and Israelis are just going through unspeakable horror. I'm not really even talking about the governments, but human horrors. Those human beings are going through unimaginable trauma. Now, while I sat in front of my TV the other day, and the hostages were returning from captivity, only a month or so in captivity, but did you notice how gingerly they were being handled? They were not just thrown back into society. They were not being met by celebrities, great sport figures, great entertainers, not even the president. No, there were special, specific people, what you call experts, people who have studied and recognized the seriousness of what they had gone through and how to handle that kind of trauma. Well, when you have been traumatized on any level, it becomes more than just physical. It takes on a mental dimension. And the quote experts are trained to handle such. So, why am I making this point? Glad you asked. Okay, the answer is compare this situation with our situation of the first 200 years of genocide. Had to be a little more severe than this, right? Just considering the length of time under that kind of trauma. 200 plus years. And another 200 years of Jim Crowism and racism. So when I say amateur versus experts, that's not meant to be cute or catchy phrase. That's real. So I'll spend the rest of my stay on this side of heaven disseminating information, knowledge, lest we perish for lack of it.
That's right.
Now I'm convinced that the restoration will require sort of a three-pronged type of thing: faith, history, and psychology. We are very faith-based people. We believe that there is something greater than ourselves that will restore us. Along with that is our history, which will reacquaint us to our original selves, and the psychology, to study, diagnose, and create solutions to help us complete the task. And quoting the great liberator, Marcus Messiah Garvey, he said, "Up, you mighty people." Now, I didn't start, as I say again, I'll say, I didn't start this podcast at this stage of my life because I wanted to, but because God has whispered in my ear. He said, "Ruby, my people will perish for lack of knowledge." And that's scripture, you know, Hosea 6:4. So when I say to you I'm an unapologetic amateur looking for experts, I'm referring to those experts who have studied thoroughly the who, the what, the why, and the how, and the solution for what ails us. In the meantime, I'll be bringing guests on of all persuasion who have information that will help us get through. Today, my guests are Professor Terry Benjamin, discussing our history, and educator, minister, Sister Gloria Taylor, how our faith and history have brought us through, and actor and stuntman, R. Marcus Taylor, straight out of Compton. We're going to find out how he got from Plainfield to Hollywood. You know, entertainment is deep within our heritage and culture. I'm getting information from all people. I want young people to know that along with the hard information, some are dear or dire, some are dire, very dire. But the opportunity for knowing the totality of who we are, there is nothing more basic to our culture than our ability to entertain.
That's right.
So I'm thrilled to have these guests here today. And, of course, my co-host is young, gifted, and black. Miss Jasmine Griffin, director of the Barack Obama Charter School here in Plainfield, New Jersey, and minutes away from her doctorate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, our young people are doing it. I tell you, I'm so proud of them. Next Monday, which will be my last show until the first of the year, we will have the eminent Dr. Jeffries. Dr. Leonard Jeffrey, former Director of African Studies, New York University, and his lovely wife, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. She's dynamite. And Dr. Akil Kokayo Kalfani. I hope I got that right. Did him justice.
Yes, brother.
Director of the Africana Studies Institute of Essex County College. Eminent scholars and experts. So please tune in. Since I'm convinced that it's going to require the faith-based, the historian, and the psychologist to come together to restore us to greatness, then that's who I'll be bringing to you. My guests coming up over the next weeks will be my students from the Williams ACAP, the William Acabalon Cultural Academy of Plainfield, a homeschool we organized to teach our young people from K through 6 who they are before they get into get information from Governor DeSantis as who they are not. They will bring on a Kwanzaa program on January the 8th. So please put it on your calendar. Then we will bring on the renowned psychologist, Dr. Monique D. Swift. I'm reaching out to Reverend Dr. Theron Williams. He wrote the books. The Bible is Black History. He wrote, and he's also wrote the book about the great women of the Bible. He wrote the children edition of the Bible. He didn't miss anything, did he? And I'm reaching out to my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Dante Quick of the First Baptist Church of Lincoln Garden. He unlocks knowledge of our presence in the world society every Sunday. Information we need to hear, truth against all of the untruth that is bombarding us, and the attempt to eliminate us from history via our libraries, our schools, and our government. Now, my podcast is dedicated to countering that. Every Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on BKS1 Radio, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So I want you to please watch. But now, my co-host, Director Yasmin Griffin, who I claim to be my granddaughter, she doesn't mind, will introduce herself. And I imagine she may not read the bios now because she tells me that she's had some problem with getting them up. So I'm going to let these great people talk on their own behalf. So, Jasmine, did you get the bios or didn't you? Or we'll go into it, something else.
No, I didn't get the bios, so I won't be able to read the bios.
Okay. Well, thank you, Yasmin. Now I'm so excited. Terry, you've been my co-host and my guest before.
Yes, many times.
And when you were my co-host and I asked you,
She's gonna put me on the spot right now. She's gonna put me on the spot, but that's all right. I can take it.
I asked him if he wanted to bring a guest on, Gloria, and he said to me, "Would the Honorable Rick Taylor's widow be available?" I would love, and he with the love with the capital L-O-W. I would love to talk about his legacy.
That's right.
And explore Black power politics in Plainfield. So, well, here we are with the widow and the son. So let's talk. I'm going to introduce you guys later, but I'm going to have Terry to come in right now and give us some info about what's happening.
Well, I quite a few things are happening now. First of all, I just want you to know that you read your outline of your future shows. Mm-hmm. Now you know you're going to mess around in the next year and have to do this every day.
Oh.
No, because you know too many people.
Okay.
You know too many people.
I'm trying.
You know too many people who we need to talk to.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely.
And it's so funny when I had mentioned Gloria Taylor, I think we were talking about politics and how we as Black people, we really have to determine what our destiny is going to be and how we can get to that. Yeah. And I remember when I met Rick and Gloria in 1986, I said, this is all Barack Obama, before Barack Obama and Michelle came out. Because when they came to Plainfield, and he started as mayor one night, and she was the first lady, I was saying, this is where we should be. Yeah. This is what we should be about.
Yeah.
And I said to you, I said, I not only would like to meet her, but I would like to write a book with her because I know she has a book within her.
Yes, you did.
But the point I'm making is that, it's just so funny just, talking with you and being with you. And I tell you, manifestation is real.
Oh, very real.
Very real.
And as I said earlier, that this is not by happenstance. That at this stage of my life, I'm going to say what part of that. This stage of my life, God did not put me here just for, by happenstance. I got a message in my ear. Really, you got to go disseminate information, lest my people will perish for lack of it. Yes, and what I try to do in the podcast is to bring people on. And I try to always explain the concept that I come on with. I'm Ruby Williams Shriver, the Unapologetic Amateur, looking for experts. Yes. Meaning that I don't necessarily just experts for experts' sake.
Right.
Expert in what I call Africanism.
Yes.
And Africanism I define as people who, know where we came from, the original
That's right.
that know what we did when we was in Africa all those years, know what happened when we were snatched out of Africa, know what happened when we came through the Middle Passage, know what happened when we got here for the 200 years, the first 200 years, and experienced the most talked about, unheard of cruelty in
Yes,
the annals of
yes,
history,
yes,
and then
yes,
the next
yes,
200 years of, the discrimination and continued racism.
Of course, of course.
So there got to be somewhere some expert, like with the virus.
Yes,
People
yes,
will tell me, they say, well, your history, that should be enough. I said, no.
No.
I know the history of the virus.
Yeah.
I know there was a
But we
bubonic
need
plague.
solutions.
Right. I know the history, but nobody's going to come to me because I know the history of it and tell me to give them a vaccine for it.
That's right.
So
that's right.
what we are trying to do now, and what I'm trying to do, is explain to people in a way that they'll know when I use that word, I'm doing not being cute. I'm not trying to grab a headline.
real.
I'm trying to
That's
be
real.
real and say we need people who know what we've been through to know how to handle it. Because, as I say, I'm so excited when I see the young man here because y'all know how I love my young black man.
Yes, I know.
I wrote a book about it.
Yes.
Ode
She
to
did.
the Black
She
Man.
did.
I guess because I had such a great young man, older man, middle age for 55 years.
Right.
My husband, who's since passed, and my 3 beautiful sons,
Yes.
and a host of beautiful grandchildren.
That's right.
They are black. So I know what a black man is,
That's
and I
right.
can appreciate him on any level.
Yes.
So when she told me, Gloria called me and said, would you like my son to come in? I said, what? Yes, I would. I had heard about him
that would be
anyway,
great, yes.
Hollywood and all. But I was so proud of him, like I'm proud of all our black people, and particularly our black men, because they have been so dehumanized.
Yes.
So, Gloria, welcome.
Where do we start? We got so much going on here. You know?
Yeah, I want to hear from you.
Oh my goodness!
And I can't read your bio, so please give us a little bit insight
Well,
of it.
it's here. I had sent it to you, but
Okay.
anyway, I have several years of experience in education.
Okay.
And
She's being modest.
well, that's what I did. I was 35 years.
Right.
Wow.
Retired as a high school principal.
Okay.
I worked in Patterson. That's where I retired from, Patterson Public Schools. But I was in Plainfield for 17 years.
Okay.
And as a teacher, that's where I got my start. But I want to say that the thing when we came to Plainfield was right after the rebellion of '68. My husband was, at that point, had come back from Vietnam, and we started dating. And we were in the same church. I'll never forget the day of the riots or the rebellion when we were walking down the street, and must have been on a Sunday or something. And I recall so vividly that all of a sudden they were looking at me like, I guess because of the way I look. Right?
Says you look white. That's what it was.
Yeah. Who's
And
that
then
white
it was
woman?
That's another white woman. Get the dogs.
So they said, you better do something. And so Rick said, she's with me, or whatever. So we went on down, and then we got up to by Plainfield Avenue, and all of a sudden Plainfield Avenue went on fire.
Okay.
And that was the beginning of the horror of what happened in the West End during the rebellion, and how the National Guard went through the projects and the way they treated the people and all of that. And my husband at that point, he was my boyfriend, had just come back from Vietnam, from one war to another. And so I'm sure it was traumatic, and as I fast forward, and then he eventually got involved in politics. Rick was the first black Democratic City Committee chair of the Democratic Party in Plainfield. He was very young. Then he moved into, he became a city council person. And prior to that, in black, and I call it Black Plainfield, they started the Voice newspaper, and the publisher was Warren Blackshear, who has since passed away. But he and these young black men, these talented black men, of course, and one of them was my soon-to-be husband, Rick Taylor, and Bill Merritt, who's from Plainfield, so many others. They began to find a vehicle. They used the Voice newspaper as a vehicle to communicate to the black community. This is after the rebellion. And they worked feverishly to produce this newspaper. In the 70s, the 80s, that's when we predominantly. And what they did was provide that vehicle to communicate to their people in the city. And then not long after that, they started to run for office. And we had our first African-American mayor, the late Reverend Dr. Everett Lattimore. And that was deliberate. And we worked hand in hand with Newark.
Yes.
Because Newark was coming, and you had the Mama Baraka. We communicated
Yes,
with
yeah,
them,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you know the
yeah.
way that Ken Gibson came. It was a community move,
Right.
Yes,
and I
that's
think
right.
it was the Black and Puerto Rican group or something that they began, and they got him to
Yes,
run.
yes.
Similarly, in Plainfield was the same thing with Lattimore.
That's right.
Is he became the first Black, but the Voice newspaper and all of those young men who were part of that, they began to utilize that and they deliberately, because this was part of the movement of the civil rights era. And so there was a real connection to civil rights activism and what was going on in your cities. And so fast forward, eventually Taylor became a city councilman and then became the president of the city council. But he was always connected, he and they were always connected to the community.
Yes.
And when we moved to Plainfield as a married couple, I fell in love with Plainfield,
Right, right.
particularly because we had Black excellence in Plainfield.
Yes.
I had seen, I mean, even the school teachers, we had, I can call the roll, Dr. Jim West, who was a brilliant Black scientist and from Bell Lab, and he and his colleagues developed a science center. Wasn't a government program. They did it through Bell Labs. And we had things like that happening, the sororities, the fraternities, and the Black business people worked hand in hand with the Black political group. And there was a mindset, because it was a national mindset and then it became a local mindset, that Black people have to deal with racism.
That's right. That's
So
right.
we've got to deal with excellence, but we also got to deal with staying connected to one another
That's right.
and
That's
begin to build Black empowerment. And these young men in Plainfield, they did it deliberately, and I was just happy to be a part of it. And so when it was Rick's turn to run for mayor, he did, and he won, but he always had a common touch.
Yes.
He was a little different than Dr. Lattimore, because Dr. Lattimore was kind of like he came through the ranks of the white political structure, and he was usually the only Black.
Yeah.
And so what he did, to his credit, is that he mentored people like Rick Taylor and Billy Merritt and so many others, so that they would work as a team
Right.
to build Black empowerment. But there was clearly a deliberate attempt to build black power in Plainfield.
Yeah.
And guess what? They did it. And the way they did it was not to be like white politicians. We couldn't afford we didn't have all the money, but we had people power. So as long as you connected to our people, as you moved up, you had a group. I mean, I used to laugh at Taylor because there were times I said, "You the mayor."
That's what she calls him. She called him by his last name, even though her name is Taylor. She would call him Taylor. Made no sense to me.
Now that's a child.
Now I'm older. I get it now. But why do you keep calling him?
Well, that was just something we did because we were partners.
Yeah.
But he could, if things didn't go right, he would organize a protest march. And even up until his illness, when he was sick for about 10 years, he was still an activist.
Yeah.
He was still
I recall.
organizing and doing things. He helped other people. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, that was the difference in the politicians that you had during that time, not only in Plainfield, but nationally, Detroit,
Yeah.
Chicago. You know, they all had the same connection to the national movement, but they had a mentality that you got to stay close to your people.
Oh, yes.
And not just do the white boys politics,
That's
which
right.
is to
That's
get
right.
money and
Yeah.
power,
Right.
but you've got to deal with. And so let me get real quick, and I will go on to other things. But I recall when he was mayor, which is different now, he would make the city officials, the city corporation council, for example.
Yes, yes.
When Miss Jones, who's been in Plainfield for 30 years, and she needed a lawyer, she would come and seek for help. They felt comfortable in coming to him for those kinds of things. He would make sure that the city corporation council wouldn't just tell her, Miss Jones, well, you need to get you a lawyer for this issue. No. They were the lawyer.
Yeah.
And Rick taught his
Yes.
people to do that.
Yes.
And they did it. They connected to the community, and if they needed help, they were told, and now that I'm not saying they did everything, but they certainly would initially meet with them and say, look, Miss Jones, this is what you got to do, and this is what I'm going to do to help you do that. He made sure that the staff did that. So when we left Plainfield after much longer after that and came back and we saw the change, we're like, you know better. When you're the lawyer for the city, you're the lawyer for the people too.
Yeah.
But that was changed.
Yeah.
There was a disconnect.
Yeah.
It was no more about we as a people going to empower our people. So things have changed. But during that time, he always pushed the bar.
Yeah.
I mean, but he was great with people, and he was
people
very
person.
talented.
Right.
People person.
He
Yes,
was a
he
people
was.
person,
Yes.
but he
People's
always
mayor.
acted like he didn't know nothing. He,
I knew
I'm just a
everything.
country boy. And I'm
Right.
like,
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
baby.
that's-
Yeah.
He did that though. My fault. See, I'm different. First of all, my name is R. Marcus Taylor, by the way.
We know your name, by the way.
I'm Gloria Taylor's son.
No, we know that
And
too.
being the son of Rick Taylor. See, this is the thing. My father wasn't an angry person. He was a tactician.
yes,
Yes, he
good
was.
point.
He was like a Napoleon, but he was 6 foot. He could do things that make people feel stupid, but then make them feel good after he made him feel stupid to make him even more valuable.
Yes,
He made himself valuable to everybody.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you can do that, that's
Yeah.
a good. That's the
very good
thing. I don't know if I learned that from him. I'm different from him because I'm an ex-pro fighter and all. I'd rather knock you out.
Why talk when you can knock him out, right?
Yeah, and it feels good. And but with him, you would think living in Richmond, Virginia, poverty, being in the gang, then shipped to the North, Plainfield.
That's right. That's right.
But then he excelled.
Yes. he
And
excelled.
everything from high school to college.
And
to,
wanted everyone around him to excel. I know
Yes.
him.
yeah,
very
he
well.
wanted everybody to help
Yeah,
themselves.
and
He
when I-
didn't want to just help people. He
Right.
wanted to help people help themselves.
Exactly. When we
And
first,
I used to see when people get upset with my father because he would literally like, let's write that. Like, I don't want to write. No, we got to write this down first, and and so we can because I have a problem because my manager, I have a manager. He's kind of somewhat like my father in that regard. He likes to take time. I'm like, I just rather fight you. But he knew how to do things for everyone.
yes.
well,
and
you
even
played a good role. Now I hope you didn't. How close related you are to the role?
Yeah.
I'm from the
He's a
suburbs.
nice
well,
guy.
actually, you know what's? Yeah,
You know,
no,
you would-
I'm not
Suge,
like
what
him.
it was, Suge Knight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I played
you
know
him.
that part.
Yeah,
Um,
play on that part.
No, I'm not him because he's that.
No, I know you're
I
not
never
him.
met
You
him.
wouldn't be
I
him.
just know what they told me, and I just did my job. But
Yeah.
that's acting in the what I do and where I do it in Hollywood. It's politics.
You did a great job, though.
Thank
did
you
a
very much.
Really
Thank you.
great job.
Do you know one thing? My wife, you taught my wife how to play piano. Her
My
name is
sister.
Nicole.
My
Your sister, I'm
sister
sorry.
did.
Your sister taught her how to
Rose.
play piano.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She was one of the students that went to your school, and
Okay.
she said hi, by the way.
By the way.
But no, my father, he was different. He was just a different.
He was a well,
Different.
like you say, he was a people. When we first moved to Plainfield, my husband and my sisters, we sang. We had a group called the Phenomenon.
Yeah.
He didn't know us from Adam,
Yeah.
but we met him because I think he was going on a trip to Washington for something, and we went with you all. But anyway, he met us that way, and then you know what he did? He realized we were trying to make it, and we didn't know anybody or anything like that. We were good singers, great singers, the Supremes, if you will.
Yeah. Why
right.
not? Why not? I give you that.
But we introduced ourselves to him, and he was I think he had just won or what? Because we did his inaugural, right?
Yes, you
That's
did.
right. That's right.
Yes, we did. And I was never forgot that. I mean, he didn't know us and everything, but he's always from that point on was trying to just help. So since I'm so black oriented, I mean, I caught right on to what was happening at Plainfield at the time. It was good. It was great. Things
great.
were going on. We had businesses and things like that.
And the
But
difference now, though, than then, these guys and ladies, but they were connected nationally.
Yeah.
They were
Yes, that's
connected.
right,
My
that's
husband was
right.
on the board of Operation Push,
Mhm.
Jesse
Yes.
Jackson. He had mentors.
Yeah.
The mentor, I can't think of his name now. The mayor, the first mayor of Atlanta, Jackson. I
Yeah,
think his name,
Jackson.
Mayor-
Yeah,
Mayor
Jackson.
was a
Minor
mentor to
Yes,
Taylor.
Jackson.
I mean, I could call, and there are other people that we
Yeah.
ran into. Taylor was a poor boy from Richmond, moved to New Jersey and moved to Plainfield. But he had an ability to relate to people, even
Yeah.
with the adults. He
Exactly.
told me had a newspaper route and they all loved him.
That's
So
right,
they would
that's right.
help him. So his personality was, as you said, very outgoing. When we first married, I mean, I remember I didn't really know how to cook. You know, I was a college grad and everything, but I know. And all these people would want to come see him. And so I had to learn how to be a host, a hostess
Yeah.
quickly, and didn't realize that his charisma would take him to the public
Yeah.
service that it did, because they just like being around him.
I
They'd come
recall he
over.
bringing what's the name? The actor.
Eddie
Amos.
Murphy?
No,
John
John
Amos.
Amos.
John
yeah,
Amos.
Became a friend.
John Amos, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like Marcus's uncle, so he
Yeah.
became at Grand Avenue.
Yeah.
He was the artist.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
did some-
He would bring Esther.
Artists in residence.
He brought Esther Roll to Grand Avenue Community
Yeah,
Center.
Esther Roll.
Eddie
Yeah.
Murphy.
Eddie
I
Murphy.
mean, you name
Yeah.
African bought all the hip hop, the godfathers of hip hop.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Grand Avenue Community
Grand
Center.
Community Center. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he was like ahead of his time. I
Yeah,
think my husband
yeah,
was. And when we
yeah.
did, one of the things we still have in Plainfield is that he brought it in to Plainfield was a 3% tax.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
still have 3% tax in
Yes,
Plainfield
yeah.
because of him
Okay.
and his work. And then when they signed the bill, guess what he did? I was a vice principal at Plainfield High School then. And I'm turning up, and Rick said, "Oh, we're going to do the signing of the law for the 3% tax. The governor's going to come, and we're going to do it at Plainfield High School." I said, "Plainfield High School? Why are you going to do it?" He said, "You watch. I'm going to show the kids." He taught the kids what it meant, and so it was like a cheerleading session.
Yeah.
I was
Right,
like,
right.
"I don't believe he did this." And the governor Kane at that point was really happy because
Okay.
nobody had ever done anything like that. That's how you're gonna. So he signed the bill, and the kids, and he explained, and the kids cheered, and I'm like,
Yeah,
this,
he was definitely an
nobody could do
innovator.
this
Yes,
but
he
Taylor,
was.
He was.
He was
and
an
so
innovator.
He was that way, and of course, it gets you in trouble as well because people don't like to follow what you did, and
That's
then they
right.
think it's easy for them to do.
Yeah.
But the thing that we were partners in is that Plainfield was part of the movement, like Newark, in building political power for Black people,
Okay.
and we did it from the point of view of blackness, of being not just culturally connected,
Yes.
but socially and personally connected to
Yes,
one another.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And we never wanted to compete with whites. We were in a multicultural community. Plainfield
that's
was
right.
a middle class, upper middle class community with whites and blacks. And the whites who were there wanted to be in an integrated neighborhood. They wanted to be where they were. And so that was the kind of thing that you had. And then you had Black talent, and like I said, Dr. Jim West and so many others, the teachers when I was teaching that were there. We had the legitimate Tuskegee Airmen, Warren Henry and his wife Dorothy, and I mean there are so many people. That was, and as a young college grad,
Right.
I came to Plainfield, and Dr. Lattimore, I mean, immediately got me to be a teacher.
Okay.
Yes.
And then he was another mentor to us.
Yeah.
So you have all of these people around you, and they had the same common goal, but they were excellent. They were
Yeah.
not just political people who didn't have any skills and just wanted to do deals. They wanted to actually serve, and they
Yeah.
understood, and they began to do. They changed some of the laws to meet the needs of Black people.
Okay.
I mean, Lattimore and Rick Taylor, as I said, the way you taught, the way you treated the community. The second thing was that they changed the ordinances, the laws, so that you had to live in Plainfield if you were a police officer or
Right.
fireman. They made sure they created a way to, because you have to pass the test, that the Black police officers and firemen were able to pass the test and become the new leaders, the supervisors, and they had to live in. We had a residency law,
Yeah.
Right.
which
Yeah.
we
Right.
still have in Plainfield. But some
Oh.
people try to, want to not do it
Yeah.
because they want to get their own people. No, there was a purpose for making sure
Yeah.
that Plainfield the Plainfield residents were a part of the leadership and the partnering with the city government. That was another thing. There was no us and them. It was we. And the we was, if you didn't like it, the we would get rid of you because they vote you out.
You had to come
But there was a real partnership. Because there was a partnership, that made it easier. And I love Plainfield. Even as the first lady in my little projects that I did, they would give me I would get money from the black business people. Not a lot of money, but I'm saying to do this, and then and they would do it. There were so many. It was the climate and the culture of Plainfield was about black empowerment. And so we fast forwarded today. It is really a shame to me. Within the schools, the same way.
Well, see, those are some of the things that I talk about in my introduction about how we need certain things to get us back to where we need to be. And just like any other people who have gone through specific traumas over your life. You need somebody somewhere to know how to fix it, to put it together. And we was talking before you came on last week about have the faith. See, there are three things we're going to have to get in our community, particularly if we want to resurrect some of the stuff. That's the faith-based people, that's the historians, and that's the psychologists. Because we need the faith-based because we're very faith-oriented people, and we know it by where we come from. And in order to do that, we're going to need those folks like yourself and my minister, because I tell you about my pastor, he's over Afrocentric. He teaches Africa all the time, but he knows from where he comes. And in order to do that, then we need to know our history, where we came from, where we came across, and what we're doing now. And after that, we need that psychology to tell us what those syndromes done to us to make us however in a negative way that we may find ourselves in. Now I've got to have my co-host before she falls asleep to come in and.
I'm not going to fall asleep. This is very interesting.
I know it was, but she wants no, right? If she wants to ask a question, just let me know. Just kind of.
I do have a question. I do have a question for Miss Taylor. Okay. Miss Taylor, I'm so happy to be here talking to you. I watched you on the city council for several years, and going to the city council meetings and now being able to sit here and talk to you is amazing. So my question, you mentioned the Black Excellence movement that started after the 68 rebellions. So I kind of wanted to bring it to what we're dealing with in Plainfield today to ask you, how was that established back then, and how do you think, given the demographic shifts that are occurring in Plainfield, the demographic shifts don't change that there is a population of Black people still here. How do you think that the current population of Black people here can continue to push forward on a Black excellence movement, or help another Black excellence movement emerge today?
I think that for me, when I was on the council, I didn't want to do it, but I was asked and I tried it. Like I said, I came back and it was so different. But the issue to me is the need for the grassroots. See, like I said, Taylor never left the grassroots. That's right. And he always made sure he had people around him who would help. That meant, and you yourself have to be an example of excellence so you can help others. All of those guys they're from the Voice newspaper that started running in the city council, we didn't have people who didn't have any skills that would run. They wouldn't even be allowed to run. First of all, the Plainfield wouldn't allow, but now it's become so politicized with the bossism and the machine politics that it's based on who you know, and you don't have to know anything. Just do what the machine tells you to do. What has happened that we've lost, and as I said, I was when I tried to address it as a council person, some of the people that were on my team were ignorant. They didn't even understand the process. I said, you cannot be a council person unless you know what your job is. You're not just to do deals and say, yes, you're to understand you run the budget. You have the money. It's a strong council, weak mayor, and you're not doing it because you don't even, all you know to do is do deals for yourself. That is the level of, but more than that, what she said, Ruby said initially, is there's no sense of purpose. It is no accident that our first Black mayor was a preacher of the gospel. Everett was a minister of the gospel, not just to do the stuff about church, but the values of caring and building community was a part of who he was. And so when he recruited people like he was.
That's right.
You know, my husband, all the time, wherever Rick Taylor went, they said he was a preacher. And at some point later on in his life, he finally said yes to God's calling. But he was always that, because the purpose of serving in public service has to be rooted in your sense of self-purpose.
That's right.
Why
That's
are you
right.
alive? What are you doing? And these guys had that. And they began to organize, and a belief that black power is important. The belief that I don't have to be next to white people in order for me to be
Exactly. Just
somebody.
say it again.
I'm already somebody, and we're
Right.
here to help our people. So, and that meant a lot of times poor people.
Yes.
Taylor was from the hood. He never lost contact with that.
That's right.
If there was a
That's right.
problem, he wouldn't send nobody to protect. He said, I'm going down there with you, because that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And if they're
That's
going
right.
to threaten my
That's right.
family or whatever, I'm going to be right there and look them in the face.
right.
But that's because of his experience. But it was this mentality nationally
Yes. Yes.
that we are a part of black empowerment. We've got to improve our own people, and you don't look to them. We got to do it ourselves,
That's right.
and we have to connect one with the other.
Yeah.
And so they did it. What has happened now in Plainfield is a disconnect.
Yes.
But as I said, the disconnect in excellence, a disconnect in people,
That's right.
and a
That's right.
disconnect which really comes from a faith that you have to have
That's right.
in order
That's
for
right.
you to. I mean, my husband and I thought we were ministers in the marketplace. We really
Well,
did. Rick didn't. We didn't. He
Yes.
wasn't.
Well, you were really,
Yeah.
know,
You
but
were
unofficially.
And let me tell you,
but,
some people, when you surround the faith movement was a part of the movement
Yeah.
That's right.
nationally.
That's right.
I mean, Reverend Willie Barrow from Operation Push, he was with Jesse Jackson
Yeah.
for many. We were close friends. She would tell you, I picked Rick Taylor and all those other people. I'm the one that got them. And she was
That's
right.
right.
She was
That's
a
right.
national civil, but there was a movement from the faith base
That's right.
that they
That's right.
felt we were all connected. And so that's what we did. And that has been lost. We're
Yeah.
lost in this mentality of
Well, you're
power.
right. It's been lost, but it was never found. If I can correct you for a minute. When I say that, certain ones of us, fortunate enough, like your husband, like maybe me, I'm still amateur, but I'm saying, we caught it somehow. But there are more of us not informed as there are informed, and that's not our fault. I wrote a book called Verbal Healing. You may have read it, Gloria. I don't know if you ever got my book, Verbal Healing. And what it tells us is that we don't understand what situation we're in. So sometimes we end up using terms like, say, for instance, I'm just going to name a few. We are our worst enemy. You know, we've heard that.
Heard that before.
We
yeah.
are not monitored. Black people don't stick together. You know that. But that's because of the trauma. That's because of the syndromes.
Right.
So we got so many syndromes. We got the Willie Lynch syndrome. We got the Stockholm syndrome. We got the hate thyself syndrome.
we do.
You know, many of us don't like our black skin. We don't like our kinky hair. We don't like whatever. But that's not us. We didn't come over here not liking that.
that was
when we got off
put
that
on-
boat
put
and
on
they
us.
snatched
Yeah,
us
yeah,
off that
yeah,
boat,
yeah.
put us on
That's a
that
good point.
hoisted us on that slave block,
Yes.
sold us to all those folks, and then they began to strip.
That's right. Yeah.
Strip us of everything we knew, strip us of our history, they stripped us of our culture, they stripped us of our religion, they stripped us of everything. So we're sort of like blanket. And that's when I
I'm
say,
going to correct you. That's not true.
well, no.
Let me tell you what I'm talking about.
All right.
You're not here only because of your African cultural. It's because there is a God.
But they
And wait a
stripped us
minute,
of our
let me-
God.
Let me say that we did all those things you're talking about happened to us. But when God moves, He gets a people to come together. It is no. I mean, we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King, if we were part of the Progressive National Baptist movement, the National Baptists, they were against each other. But when Dr. King came out, he was one of the forerunners. God picks people and picks us to do what we're supposed to do. I am not saying that everything is perfect, but that is not true. That what was the movement about the hair? And now we're back to having straight hair again. We had a movement where we had our natural hair, and I was part of. We were all part of that, 60s, 70s. So I'm saying, with people, things happen, and people go through seasons, etc. But my hope is that God is in charge.
Oh, he's
and that
definitely in
guess
charge.
what? He will put I'm not to do everything, and neither are you.
Yeah, yeah.
What we're supposed to do is connect with, I believe, the God and other people, and then he begins to use us to change the world. And it looks bad, but we have the hope because of our faith. Now, the issues of the cultural issues you're talking, I believe that. That's not my what I have to focus on is what I'm supposed to do. But what, in answer to her question with young people and what's happening today, they need a sense of purpose again. They start with what they can see, which is, where is the black empowerment?
Right.
What happened? Where is it? You don't go to college just to come and be an individual and get rich. Now, the system will tell you that, well, colorism will help. They tried it with me. You're almost white. You like us. I said, no, I'm not, because I could be whiter than white, but I'm still a black person.
But
and
you
guess
knew
what?
that. But how many of us know
Because
that?
our job was to teach one
Right.
another.
That's right.
And that's what we did. But at the same time, we taught. During the 70s and the 80s, all that cultural stuff was there. The dashikis wearing and all
But
of that.
that-
Don't you?
Afros and the- yeah, all
Yeah,
that
but-
stuff.
but I'm saying-
to you, and I don't want to debate it, because like
No,
I say,
no.
my show is not about debate. My show is just for facts. And when I bring facts on, because I was asking today, this, I don't know if you had come in at the time, and I was talking about sitting in front of the TV and seeing this recent things that happening with the Middle East. Had you come in yet?
No.
I was saying, now this was only a short period of time, less than a month. But when those folks came back, the hostages, when they came back, and everything was so sad, because, on both levels, everything is sad about that
it's
situation.
Human suffering.
Yes, human suffering. But when they came back, and I sat in front of the TV, and I'm saying, because God always provides me with examples, because sometimes people don't understand what I'm talking
That's
about.
all right.
So as I sat there in front of that TV,
They'll catch up.
in front of that TV, and I watched how gingerly they were treating those people who came back.
Yes,
Rightfully so, because they know when you go through any trauma, it's going to do something to your mind. So they're saying, I don't care. I don't want no celebrities going over there. I don't want no sports people. I don't want even the president. All I want to see those people now are psychologists.
Right.
Someone who's going to get to
Help
figure out what's
them
going
together,
on in their
yes.
mind. So I'm saying, now that was just on about 3 weeks. So how about 200 years of what we went through? So it's not anything to laugh about. It's something to know that we need as much consideration as anyone else, or more, because we went through something no one else had ever gone through in the history of the world. So we're going to need something to help us and it's going to take people like you say, Rick. He was a special person. There are special people in this world that we don't know the reason that come through. You're a minister. It's going to take the faith-based people. It's going to take the historians, and it's going to take the psychologists to get together under one umbrella and say, how can we come together and get the rubies of the world, the amateurs like me, to figure out what we're going to need to do as a group of people who've been through trauma. That's what I'm talking about. So I agree with you. Huh? Yes, babe.
I do have a question, one more question for Miss Taylor, because we're talking about the people that we're trying to bring in. And I work at a charter school, a charter high school in Plainfield, and I'm working with kids every day. And of course, what we know about the civil rights movement is that kids were at the foundation of the grassroots movement there. So, Miss Taylor, I wanted to find out from you what you think we could be doing in the schools with our students who are graduating and going to college. What could we be doing as educators to kind of help them become those people who collaborate with these thinkers about how to bring back a movement of Black excellence in Plainfield?
I think that you need to do, as teachers do, to build the potential in kids, not just teach to the test. And I also think that the cultural, as Ruby was talking about, we have to do that too. We have in the schools, we have Amistad, which was a law, which we're not doing that in the schools.
They're not even
That's
doing it.
on the books. So Black Power. I mean, I remember not only but others did Black Power stuff. We did our own stuff.
So as the director of curriculum, I will say that I've and I know other colleagues have been making.
That's good.
Well, let me tell you something else about the schools differently. The value of the community that you have here, you're not tapping into it. When I was a vice principal, and before that, I worked with community groups. There was a group called the Black Women's History Conference. and we had the conference at Plainfield High School. We always reached out to the community, so you know, kids learn from the books, but they learn from experiential learning, and they learn from people who have treaded places that they haven't. There is a disconnect in our community with the schools, with the churches, with what's going on. We don't have what you need to have more involvement with community groups,
Right.
committees set up that, I mean, have them come to speak and all kinds of things to even get the students to understand what it's like to live in community.
Yes.
It is not just doing the books. And for black children, we have to deal with the racism. And most of us, if you recall, well, Plainfield's considered an urban area. When I worked in Patterson, look, the people I was over who were supervised, they thought, well, you ought to be glad I'm here because I don't have to work in Patterson. And then when the kids didn't achieve, they would say, oh, well, you know, what do you expect? I'm in Patterson. No. You have to hold people accountable for what they were supposed to do. And they don't really know, but that's no excuse.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you get over because you don't know how to connect with black children. You can't teach math if you don't know who it is you're teaching. Plainfield used to have community involvement. You're the curriculum person. There's curriculum in the city of Plainfield that you get people like myself and others who might have skills and willing to volunteer to begin to teach these kinds of things that you can't do. I mean, I'm not going to go off and tell you what I did, but that's another time. But even
I would love that time. I would love the opportunity to have that
You
conversation.
have to do a part
I have
2 on
some-
this.
I have some questions here for you all. Wait just a minute. Norm, bring them back there. Someone was asking, wanted me to ask Marcus something.
Yeah, I was going to say,
let me
now
see.
you need to ask them because it's their generation. We're
Let me see.
has-beens.
Okay. Hey, Sharon, so glad you called me. What does the young man... Wait, I was trying to read. Okay, what does the young man think about the... Okay, what does the young man think about the role of younger black men in this current culture? They are the future leaders. Can we hear from them? Then there's Joseph, who said, our DNA sequences have changed through trauma. Hey. And Jabal, my nephew, says, awesome episode, Auntie. Okay, then someone else, Salim, called and said, yes, grassroots where any black movement would progress. And then Joseph, also the philosophers, and Darryl. My cousin said, great show. Well, thank you. Rose Cabbage Stalk. Marcus says his wife went to Rose for lessons. Say, awesome guest. Rashida Johnson, my niece, say, thank you, babe. All you all. Dawan Williams, thank you, sweetheart, for listening. Atia Bay, oh my goodness. Tavia, I told her Marcus going to be on it. Hold on, you got the whole line
Yeah,
on
right,
here.
yeah.
Tiffany Baker,
Yeah,
Marcus.
we have to do part 2 of this.
Right. Robert Cabbage Dog, thank you so much. Rose Cabbage Dog, hi family. Robert and I are watching. Okay, Rashida, Juanita, you're watching. Thank you all. Continue to watch. Continue to share. You know me. This I'm Unapologetic Amateurs looking for experts. I'm gonna be disseminating this information as long as I can. And I got great guests. I told you all coming on. My next show next week will be Doctors Jeffries, Rosalind Jeffrey and her husband, Leonard Jeffries, and then Dr. Califani. And the next week I'm gonna have the psychologist on not the next week. I'm gonna be off the next 2 weeks. And then the beginning of the year, I'm going to have the kids come on and present Kwanzaa. I was asked by one of the teachers in North Plainfield how to bring the Kwanzaa program there. So I got to do that on the 20th. But anyway, we're trying to get it out there. We're trying to get our young people to know that history is a must for them, first of all. Once they learn the history, then they'll learn how to navigate around it to get us back to where we need to be. And, of course, faith-based people that we are, we're going to have that. I'm trying to get my pastor to come on. He will be coming on. He's just been so busy. But he drops some good information every Sunday, very Afrocentric, and that's what we need to know who we are, where we came from, how we got to get back to where we came from.
That question was for Marcus.
Yeah, that question was from, yeah, it said for the young man. What does the young man think about the role of young black? So you respond to that one, Marcus.
Could you ask me that again, please?
Okay. It says, what does the young man think about the role of younger black men in this current culture? They are the future leaders. Wait, bring it back. They are the future leaders. They are the future leaders. Can we hear from them? From him? Can we hear from you?
You sure y'all want me to answer?
No.
How much time do we have, right?
We're just about out of time anyway. So, but anyway, give them an answer, Marcus. Whatever you think.
I just think today's black men are soft.
Ooh. Okay.
I mean, soft as ice cream. Every time it gets hot, they melt because they're afraid to say no to the bad things.
That's right.
They're afraid, and it's I can't answer that.
This is
All I
a
want-
hard
'cause
question, right?
It comes from lack of father, from an angry, perhaps maybe an angry mother or a worried mother who sees a son as more of a boyfriend than a man,
Whoa,
than a
okay,
child.
Yeah. That's deep.
Yeah.
And
That's trauma.
I see it every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see guys that are making millions of dollars, but their house is in order. They're afraid to take a stand when no is no, when you know it's the right thing, and they're not going to do that because I think today's black men are afraid. Like people like my father, Jim Brown, and all those other guys, Muhammad Ali, they weren't afraid. Muhammad Ali, I mean, they took 3 years. He couldn't work for 3 years.
Right.
He took his livelihood in the 60s. And he still kept. He didn't give up.
Right. Right.
That's right.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
And every black man's capable of that courage because it comes from our history and
Yeah.
what we've done.
Yeah.
In spite of the bad things has happened to us, we still prevail because we have that history of strength and courage. And
Right.
so I would tell the younger guys to look inside yourself, ask God for courage,
Yeah.
then make a decision to do whatever you feel you got to do in your lifetime.
Beautiful
Excellent.
answer. Thank
Beautiful
you. Thank
answer.
you so much, brother.
Yeah, and that is what we're going to have to
Yeah,
start
you
getting
represented on
from
that
the
one. Yeah,
heart.
yeah.
And because we don't always know, we don't always, not that the older one of us know, but what one scripture, I can't recall the scripture, and Glory's going to help me here, say the wisdom to the elders. And one of the reasons I know I don't know everything because I do have the wisdom to know that so much we have gone through, it's going to take people other than myself to know how to put it all together and to convince us that we are the great people that God made us to be. And once we understand that and get that other cobweb stuff out of our head, we're going to be doing something. Now, let me do this very quickly because your producer makes me do this all the time. You can enjoy this program by listening to BKS1 Radio or seeing me in person on Facebook or YouTube. You can bless this program by sending a donation to Cash App, $Ruby Shivers, or Zelle, Ruby Shivers 158 at gmail.com. So, and one of the things I failed to do, I'm a book writer and I wrote about 5 books, but I never think to sell them.
That's the other part.
This is my first book, Verbal Healing. This is my last book, Why Shouldn't I Cry? Ode to the Black Man. You know, and that remind me, my young brother, to give you one of the copies before you leave, because this is my dedication to you black men whom I love very much, because I know you are more than that. You are everything in a bag of chips, but somehow they have dehumanized or attempted to dehumanize you. They can't do it because you're too strong. But for the ones of you who are not as strong as you, or the brother here, or some other, we got to reach out to them and make them know the same thing we want you all to know. And that's what I'm here for. God has put me here to tell you all, you're all of that in a bag of chips. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to watch next week. I'm having Dr. Jeffries on. You know they are all that. And so they're awesome. And then from then on, we're going to keep it rolling, keep it moving, and we're going to come to a conclusion that I am an amateur looking for experts.
Yes.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless. We need more time. We need more time.
y'all could go